Well, he might have struggled in qualifying for the United States Grand Prix, but on Sprint Saturday, it has been the Max Verstappen show. Pole in the sprint shootout and a dominant win in the sprint itself. Max Verstappen back to P1, but the story is Mercedes, with an upgraded car, are very much back in the hunt. Welcome to your post-sprint show. Hello folks, and welcome to the paddock here at the Circuit of the Americas for your post-sprint show with me, Will Buxton, and two guests I'm delighted to have on the show. Two of Canada's finest exports, I think, more so than maple syrup and Brian Adams. It is Jacques Villeneuve and James Hinchcliffe. Guys, listen, we don't lie to our folks at home on F1 TV. It wasn't a classic, but
it wasn't the most exciting one. No,
it wasn't the best. But Max Verstappen in imperious form, Jacques.
Yes, but it's not a huge lead.
No,
he had to drive hard for that one. It happened on the start. He really squeezed there a little bit beyond the limit. That should be looked at because he went more than inside of the pit exit. There should be a fine line where you don't squeeze other drivers off. But then, as always, the Red Bull is slightly better in the race than qualifying. The Ferrari is slightly worse in the race than qualifying. And yeah, the surprise was what Mercedes.
We know that Red Bull is so good on its tyres. James, do you think that was the difference today, or was it Max making the difference out on track?
Yes, I think both of those things apply. Here's the thing, I mean, you know, Max on lap 4, lap 5 was complaining about losing the rear, the drivability wasn't there, but it seems like they went through that grain cycle and then he just sort of took off. 4 or 5 laps, Hamilton could stay inside DRS, and then once he broke that, I mean, it was gone. 9.5 seconds in a 19-lap race. It doesn't make things look great for them. Thank God he's starting 6th tomorrow. I mean, he's so confident. Even he's saying, yeah, tomorrow should be fun. It'll be more fun. He's not even concerned about the fact he's on the 3rd row, because I think between him and the car, the combination of the two, just incredible.
We'll roll it back to the start. A great getaway from Charles Leclerc. As you say, though, Jacques, Max did push him. Was that over the line? Do you think that's too much?
Well, when you're down the pit lane and Leclerc to go on the green bit of the track, off the track, so he was pushed off the track, that's too much. Yeah, that's not necessary. But then he backed off. He could have braked later than Max, and he just backed off.
We have this thing in Formula One that on the opening lap, there's this philosophy of let them race. If you pull a move like that from lap 2 onwards, would you be taken to the stewards? Would the stewards look at that as forcing another driver off the track? Why is something that isn't looked at in the race allowed on lap 1?
I don't know why lap 1 there's this difference, because dirty driving or pushing a car off the limit of the track should still be looked at. Now, obviously, two or three cars on an opening lap they don't know where everyone is. Brake a little bit too late. These things can happen, and maybe keeping an eye, shutting your eyes on that a little bit, okay, for aggressiveness, but not for pushing drivers off the track.
James, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm somewhere in the middle, because you can also look at the later part of that corner when Lewis Hamilton actually went 4 wheels off to get that run on Charles Leclerc. I think that was still a good move. That's a first lap thing. Everyone's jockeying for position, so I'm glad there was no intervention there. That said, the move into turn 1 with Max, I'm with you. It's right on the limit for sure. But I do love seeing that, because Max so rarely gets raced.
Yeah.
Right? This year, it's so rare we actually see. I love seeing that. He's that fiery guy when he does get to race someone. He really loves it, you know, and he takes it to that limit. He hasn't gotten soft in all these hundreds and thousands of laps he's led this year.
It did leave Charles Leclerc susceptible to an attack from Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton getting up there into P2. And for those opening laps of the race, certainly, we got a little reminder of how things were back in 2021. Lewis able to keep Max in DRS range.
Well, it was obvious that the Mercedes now has a lot of downforce, more than anybody else on the track here. Now, is it the way they run the setup, or is it the car itself that is sucked to the ground? And it allowed him to stay close. And that always been a weakness of Mercedes in the past, being in the pack. And they had to learn how to do that. And now the car is good there. It lacks a little bit of top speed, though, because of that.
Mercedes are feeling buoyed this weekend, though, James, with that upgrade on the car.
They really are. You know, for me, you heard it in Lewis's voice on the cool-down lap. We've seen a lot of cool-down radio transmissions from him where it's dejected, but, you know, still that positive message. He loves, hey, let's just keep working at the factory. But you can hear in his voice that he's just like, I can't believe it's still such a big gap. Today was great race. Good job, everyone. That was fun. We're getting better. And I feel like he's really kind of buoyed a little bit. And I think you see that in the results. I mean, he's kind of separated himself from George Russell with this new package.
Yeah. But that's also when Lewis seems to be the happiest, when George is quite far behind him.
Yeah, we'll dive into that in a little bit. George had a bit of a scrappy race today, lucky to finish with just that one final point for 8th place. A strange decision from Ferrari, shall we say, to put Carlos Sainz on the softs. He had a bit of contact with Oscar Piastri at the start, ultimately led to Oscar dropping back during the Grand Prix. But first of all, the decision to put him on softs.
Maybe to keep an extra set of mediums for tomorrow's race, or to figure out how the tire actually works, because they didn't do that much work on the tire on the sprint weekend. They don't have time. They have to figure it out. And I guess they put more emphasis on Leclerc, and they used Sainz to work on the tires.
Fun for him while it started, difficult at the end, but for Piastri with that damage, that really made his race a hard one this afternoon.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to Oscar and see what it was that actually was damaged. Was it a downforce issue? Did something in the suspension actually bend? Was a toe out? But you could see for sure that he was just struggling, especially compared to the pace that Lando had. It's subtle, it's slight, but you know, Jacques, these cars can be so sensitive and so finicky. Just the smallest contact can do serious damage.
And even if it's only a little bit of downforce, it's more the imbalance you get, unpredictability of the car, and you chew up the tires. So you're okay for 2, 3, 4 laps, you fight it off, but then at some point, you just can't cope. The tires are gone.
But I gotta say, I was impressed with Carlos, just going back to him, because those softs did start going away about lap 5, lap 6. We saw it. A couple cars did get, the 2 cars he passed got right back by him. But then again, it seems like they got through that graining phase, and he did a great job. He didn't panic. You know, he didn't kind of lose control, didn't lose his head. He stayed cool, drove very well defensively against George Russell. So to come home where he started, I thought was actually a very impressive drive.
Some beautiful defensive driving from Carlos there.
Yeah, but it was clean. We've seen him overly defensive in the past. And nasty, moving it too late. There he left the door open. He knew that he had to focus on not using up and chewing up his tires. So it was better to let them by, not fight too hard, save the tires to make sure that he wouldn't just disappear like Piastri did.
We've all questioned the decision to start him on softs. What does Carlos Sainz think about the team's decision to put him out there as the only driver to start this race and finish it on a soft tire?
Carlos, you gave it a go with the soft tyre. Pleased that you tried that at least?
Yeah, no. When I was the only car on soft, I said we probably didn't get it right, which obviously we didn't. Once after 2 or 3 laps, I saw the medium was just quicker, pretty much the whole stint. Yeah, something to learn from, something to improve going into the future, no? To see if we can maybe save those gambles and don't do them. But yeah, at least I managed to keep my position. I think with the medium we probably could have done a better job, but yeah, we saved up P6 the whole race defending and tried my best.
Has that allowed you to save some more mediums for tomorrow? Because it looks like Deg is high, and that might actually play into your favour, mightn't it?
Yeah, we definitely look like we are in a better position going into tomorrow. Also with the tyre model, we've learned how the soft behaves. So at least we go into tomorrow knowing how all the tyres should behave, and now we can focus on making sure we do the maximum tomorrow. That is when the big points count. No, today was tough, but at least we learned something.
Great stuff. Thank you very
much. Circumspect then from Carlos Sainz, as he said, not too keen on being the only one on the softs, but they do have those mediums for tomorrow, and critically the knowledge through Leclerc's running on that tire. We will hear from Charles Leclerc later in the race. From drivers who fared well today now to some who didn't, it's looking like a horrible weekend for Aston Martin. Miserable grid position for the Grand Prix tomorrow, slightly better today, but no points in the bag. Didn't look like they were moving anywhere. And yeah, towards the end, Lance Stroll, I didn't actually see what happened because he was ahead of Fernando, then dropped behind, and then retired from the race with brake issues.
He was fighting with someone else. Something happens, he does it. But it seems that they always stop him a few laps from the end. I guess it's better to have a DNF than finishing behind Fernando. It's really, really strange, because there's no reason to 2 laps from the end, almost every race, oh, there's an issue with the car. That's not really believable.
I mean, they claimed it was brakes, which we saw issues with in practice. So
yeah, but 19 laps?
Yeah.
That's tough for tomorrow.
that is very tough. I mean, he only made 5 laps in practice, so this is actually an improvement.
And from one disappointment to another, Logan Sargeant, when he qualified P20 today, during that session, Alex Albon was P3. He never featured in the race today at all. Williams have said they're giving him these last 5 races of the season. What can he do in these, Jacques, to convince the team, to convince anybody really that he merits a space next year.
Maybe he's still hurting from Qatar. We saw that he was dead tired at the end of the race. I don't know. He's been lacking pace. He's been crashing hard. And then the question is, to stop crashing, he also has to slow down. So that makes it, you don't suddenly invent 1 second like this overnight. He's had enough races now to show what he's capable of. Maybe the car doesn't suit him. I don't know. It's really a tough one.
It's a strange one, isn't it, Hinch? Because after quali this morning, after sprint shootout, he said the car had felt great. So the car feels great. He's P20 and almost a second off his teammate in quali.
Then you're not driving it fast enough to feel what's wrong with it. You know, it's a really difficult scenario, right? And you ask what can he do over these next 5 races. I looked at Abu Dhabi because I think he's got more laps in an F1 car around that track than probably anywhere else, right? Because he's done the young driver tests and he did the FP1. And if he can go there and he can be close to Alex in practice, be close to Alex in qualifying, have a mistake-free race and be close to Alex.
Mistake-free weekend.
Mistake-free weekend and be close to Alex. Maybe that shows the situation that, okay, he just needed a year to learn all these tracks, get comfortable in them, and then he can apply what he's learned in year 2. If I'm Williams at this point, that's kind of the last hope I'm really leaning on, is a very, very strong competitive weekend in Abu Dhabi. Outside that, I'm not sure what else the team can do.
No, and also, how is he carrying it? How is it affecting him mentally, psychologically? It's a lot of weight to carry, and some drivers, it makes them go better with that kind of pressure. Some others, it just makes them disappear.
It's been a pretty disappointing weekend so far for Logan Sargeant. We can, though, hear from him after the sprint.
Logan, obviously from where you were starting, it was always going to be a long afternoon, but from the pace of the car, the feeling of the car, and the learnings, what did you get out of today?
Just feel like we're still quite disconnected from high to low speed, and that's been a bit of a challenge. Just struggle to be quick in the place I needed to be quick to get close enough to try and overtake. But yeah, we'll see what we can take from it and try to put ourselves in a better position tomorrow.
Is that the kind of thing where, because you can't really change the setup, there's actually very little you can do, or can't do many changes to the car, very little you can do to improve that for tomorrow?
Yeah, I can still work with my tools within the systems, and we have the front wing we can try to help with, but other than that, I'll try and help it with my driving as well, see what I can do better. But yeah, still in search for a bit more pace.
All right, best luck tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's going to be a long Grand Prix Sunday for Logan Sargeant. Now, while he had a disappointing afternoon, Alex Albon was so close to scoring points. That last lap left him just a couple of tenths out of the points, with George Russell getting that 5-second penalty. This wasn't supposed to be a weekend that suited Williams at all. Their qualifying pace didn't look that promising. Today's been a different case for Alex Albon in a car which the night before didn't look anywhere near this good. What do you think's changed today?
We've seen a lot of differences from quali to race pace, and tomorrow will be even more so because of the heavy fuel loads, and they know today how the tires are evolving. So that was good preparation for tomorrow. He's a very good driver, and he seems to have been able to work with a team to get a car in a position that he can drive it to its limit.
Hinch, how impressed have you been with Albon's performances throughout the year, but especially today?
Yeah, I mean, throughout the year, like you say, he's kind of been one of the stars of the show when you take Max out of it and a couple other guys. But what's so interesting to me is, again, these Parc Fermé rules, you cannot touch the car. There's a few things you can adjust from inside the cockpit, sure, but fundamentally the setup's the same. How do you go from qualifying 17th a day ago, not change the car, and end up 7th on the grid today? We've heard about how sensitive this car can be to wind, so there's just conditions can make that big a difference, especially when the field is so close. A little bit of cloud cover, lower track temp, maybe a change in wind direction or wind speed. It can have enough effect to find you 10 places on the grid. It's just incredible.
Helmut Marko stating during the week Red Bull may have been a touch too quick to have dropped him from their program, and now they can't get him back in, even if they wanted to, into that car.
The problem is they put him there too early, and he wasn't ready. So it's always hard to get the ball rolling again. That happened to quite a few other. Perez was the same thing when he first got to McLaren. It was too early, and then it collapsed. So there's also a mental thing there, and Red Bull is one of these tough teams. And Helmut Marko is not the easiest of guys, we know. So that puts a lot of pressure on the driver, and it put a lot of pressure on him at the beginning. Now he would be ready, but the time is past.
Having a wonderful time at Williams, really reinvigorated at that team. Now we need to talk about George Russell, of course, finishing down in P8, just a couple of tenths away from being beaten by Alex Albon. The 5-second penalty that he picked up in the race today couldn't give the place back to Oscar Piastri, because by that point Pierre Gasly had driven past him, but let's be honest, he never was going to give the position back anyway, was he?
No, and we've seen it in Monza with Perez. Was it 2 or 3 years ago? Sometimes it's better to get a penalty and drive away, because you'll build that 5-second gap anyway. So it's a strange one, because it's a penalty that you can strategize with. Do you let the guy back and then lose another 3 laps behind him and maybe destroy your tires, or just overtake him and build those 5-second penalties?
It was pretty obvious, wasn't it? I mean, he said, I got pushed.
Yeah.
You weren't buying that in commentary.
No. I mean, look, that's what drivers do, right? You got to try. You're not gonna get on the radio and be like, yeah, no, that one's on me. Sorry, boys. You're gonna try. I give them the credit for trying to make the case, but when you look at it from the tape, it's pretty black and white. But like Jacques said, I mean, that's the decision that you and the team have to make in that moment. What's more advantageous? How do we think we can get the most out of this? Drop back immediately, try and get them into turn 1, or just put the hammer down and go for it.
Jack, you're writing the F1 rules for 2024. I mean, you're not, but if you were, what would you do? What would you change about that 5-second rule? Or would you change anything about that 5-second rule?
Well, drive-through.
Straight up drive-through penalty?
Drive-through, because then you know the penalty is big enough that you won't go for it.
And if you did make that mistake, you hand it back straight away?
Yeah, and also, you hand it back straight away. And a drive-through means you will have to fight through traffic. You will have to fight in your real position. You won't just have free air where you can freely get that 5 seconds back.
And this is the thing, we've seen incidents this year, James, where drivers have just biffed someone off and got a 5-second penalty, which they've made up by the end of the race. You know, the driver they've hit is out. There's no repercussion on that. Yeah,
too often it doesn't actually affect the outcome of that driver's race at all, and so what's the motivation to stop doing it? But as we talk about rule changes and rewriting rules and stuff, there's one I want to go back to from qualifying. So George Russell got that penalty we're not just picking on George Russell here, just had not a great day in that sense. The penalty was pretty obvious. As soon as it was called, I think most people knew, you know, he was going to get a penalty, but that was still in Q2. I think you need to, in that break between Q2 and Q3, make the call there. Drop the driver back, push the driver into the top 10 and into Q3. That was out as a result, right? Daniel Ricciardo could have been in Q3 today. He started 10th, but if he had actually gone and started in Q3, maybe he could have gone out and started high. You have no idea, right? So rather than just giving them that free position, I would rather give the driver the opportunity to go into the next round.
When it's that clear.
And actually be able to, when it's that clear. Certainly there's going to be times where you have to talk to both parties and maybe can't always be applied, but I don't think that one had really any doubt. And so let's just be quick on it, apply it, say, hey, you're out for Q3, next car gets moved up.
Let's talk about Alpine very quickly. Pierre Gasly in the points today. Great starting positions for both drivers in the Grand Prix tomorrow. How impressed have you been with Pierre this weekend?
Doing quite well. It's a team that was a little bit in chaos. There's been, if you look at the changes internal to the management, and they recovered really, really well. So it looks like the people in place now are racers, and they know what they're doing.
Yeah, very much so. A great run from Pierre Gasly to P7 in today's sprint. Now, let's look a little bit further ahead from him. Sergio Perez in that second Red Bull. It has been a tough couple of races for him. Did we see some little glimmers of hope, James, that the light might be back in Sergio Perez today?
I would say the light is back, but because when the light was on, he was P2 to Max. He was challenging Max. If he got ahead of Max on the track, he could stay ahead of Max in a couple scenarios earlier this year. So the magic's not back, but the mistakes have stopped, right? So we're getting there. There's definitely progress. It's not making Q3. It's not track limit violations like we've seen in some of the past few weekends. So I do think it's progress. Maybe he's just trying to get back and peak in Mexico in a week's time. Who knows? But he's not all the way there yet.
He's not. He is, however, P5 in the sprint, and we can hear from him.
Hey, Checo. In terms of the pace of the car today, I know from where you were starting, did you feel like you could have made a little bit more progress?
It looked like that in the beginning, but I think always starting from where I started, I probably damaged or used the tire a little bit too much. My tire was also quite in bad shape already before we started. So, but anyway, I think there is some good learnings to take onto tomorrow, and conditions are going to be similar tomorrow. So hopefully we are able to learn on that.
It's super close still between the McLarens, Mercedes, you guys, the Ferraris. What do you think is possible tomorrow if you get everything right with the strategy?
I think podium should be possible if we are able to make good progress early on. Things should be looking good.
Great stuff. Best of luck. Thank you.
Good to hear then from Sergio Perez. He reckons a podium is possible tomorrow. Jacques, you talked earlier about the mental game and particularly how tough it is at Red Bull, particularly when you are underperforming. They don't make it easy. They like to ramp up the pressure rather than put their arms around you and give you a little cuddle.
Well, they want tough drivers. And if a driver can't cut through the pressure, then he shouldn't be there. That's a little bit their attitude. They've always been hard on getting drivers in and out. And they're right, it's F1, it's the pinnacle. It's not for teddy bears, basically.
It's not. Laura Winter has managed to grab hold of Christian Horner.
Christian Horner alongside me now. Another win for Max Verstappen, and it seemed at the start he got the better of that, and that was the end of it. Talk me through how important that start will be tomorrow.
Well, the start's important, but the good thing is you can overtake here, and Max, he managed that race very, very well. He wasn't too hard on the tyres, and just built a gap, and what was he, over 8 seconds ahead by the end of the race. So in 19 laps, that's a great result. It's a very strong Saturday for us. We've got a bit more work to do tomorrow because obviously starting in 6th place, there's quite a bit to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And how concerned are you with his comments about the drivability of the car and seemingly a lack of comfort perhaps in the car as well?
Well, winning by 8 seconds, I think we can probably live with that. But that's Max. He's always looking for perfection and pushing himself, pushing the team, pushing the car for more. And I think looking at today, looking at Lando's pace, on a clear run tomorrow, you'd say they look the toughest competitor from what we saw today.
I knew you'd answer that question with a response like that, Christian. But we'll move on to Sergio Perez, P5 for him, and a decent recovery.
Yeah, decent recovery, some good strong racing from him as well. He was smart with Oscar the way he got that move done, and obviously then with Carlos as well. So I thought he drove a strong race and had good pace as well. So hopefully that'll come into play tomorrow.
I know it was 9 seconds over Lewis Hamilton, but how wary are you of Mercedes, the upgrades they're bringing, the direction they're going in for 2024?
Well, look, they were very strong here last year, if you remember, and it was only right at the end of the race that Max was able to pass Lewis. So everybody's still learning for next year, and that includes ourselves. So we're treating every race as a one-off and taking something out of it.
And finally, on a weekend in which we have such limited practice time, what are the key learnings you've taken from this 19-lap sprint race for the Grand Prix?
That we've understood the tyre, how that tyre worked. We've seen how our competitors have worked on the tyre as well. So it gives you a lot of data. The guys will now analyse all of that overnight and come up with the simulations for the race tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Christian. Congratulations. Well done today.
Great to hear from Christian Horner with Laura Winter there. As he says, Mercedes are definitely a threat, not just now, but looking towards 2024 with that upgrade. So too, we would assume McLaren, who have been on such a great run of form recently. Lando Norris, with his result in 4th place today, moves McLaren within 6 points of Aston Martin. The change, Jack, in the performance of those two teams has been astonishing. Aston second fastest at the start of the year, McLaren absolutely nowhere. To this weekend, at this stage of the season, McLaren, arguably the second best team at the moment in Formula One, and Aston, absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, well, it's obvious that early in the season, McLaren probably had a good car, but one ingredient was just wrong, sick. You could be the strongest man in the world, but if you're in bed with fever, you won't do much, and that's what was happening with the McLaren. Suddenly they changed something, and it made everything else work, and I'm sure it surprised them as well, because they hadn't thought about it beforehand. Obviously, they didn't think that one piece was sick, and now the car seems to be easy to drive. Both drivers can easily put tough laps in, quick laps in, and they don't chew up the tires, so it's an easy car to drive.
Lando, today, phenomenal job, Hinch, and on a day where Oscar really struggled with that damaged car, important for him to bring home those points in that battle.
Yeah, huge, especially capitalizing on a day when Aston Martin's just having a terrible day, terrible weekend, and it's kind of the first race in a few where there was a little bit of a separation between those two. I mean, they have scored as a team more points than anyone but Red Bull, but Max, really. They've done an incredible job as a group. They've been very close since that upgrade package came. And they weren't entirely sure how this track was going to translate. The high downforce of Suzuka, the high downforce of Qatar, they knew was going to suit the package here. More of a medium downforce setup, but Lando on the front row for the GP tomorrow, he's getting it done.
Can they fight? Not just for the podium, but for the win tomorrow?
I don't see why not. Here's the thing. If you look at today, Mercedes definitely looked like Lewis, definitely looked like he had the second best race pace, better than Charles. So I even think starting from third, Lando was there, but he was not really making moves. He wasn't catching the Ferrari. He wasn't, So I still think Lewis has a really good shot based on the race pace of being second to Max. But yes, it's still going to be so tough to stay ahead of him. But I think Lando, when I spoke to him, said he thinks they've got better race pace than Ferrari. I'm not sure if today proved that. We'll see when you've got to run both compounds of tires. So it might kind of go McLaren's advantage a little bit tomorrow.
One guy who will be hoping to fight for the win tomorrow is the driver who had to be content today with third. That's Charles Leclerc. Laura Winter has got his team boss, Fred Vasseur.
Well, Fred Vasseur, P3 and a P6 for Ferrari today. Just about your reaction to that sprint race.
Yeah, we had also the objective for the sprint race to have a long stint with both compound to prepare the race for tomorrow, and I think it was the good choice. We struggled a little bit during the race for different reasons, and we'll keep this for me. But
can you give me a hint?
No, but I think it was the best preparation for tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll start from pole. We need to have a good start, a good first corner to not lose position turn one as today. And let's see.
Yeah, let's talk about that start. Pole position, of course, for Leclerc. We saw today how it can happen from P2. How important is that start, and what's the thinking?
I think we have a good top speed that we are able to defend, that Carlos kept Russell 10 laps behind him. And it's why also the lap 1, turn 1 will be crucial, and if we can keep the position, it's a step forward for sure. But we know that turn 1 in Austin, it's never an easy one.
No, it can be a little bit chaotic. And you mentioned the soft compound as well for Carlos. That was a case of data gathering. The choice was to put him on that one rather than the medium?
Yeah, we didn't have the occasion to long stint soft and medium before the sprint race, and I think it was important for us to have a good read on the situation.
And what's the key takeaway from the race this evening to take into tomorrow?
We have to discuss with the drivers to have a good understanding of what we did it well, and what we did wrong, and to try to put everything together for tomorrow. But we had a good pace so far with the medium, with the soft, in every single conditions, and I think we can do a good job tomorrow.
We shall see. Well done today. Thanks so much. Good luck tomorrow. Ciao, ciao, Fred.
So as Fred says, they've got the knowledge, they've got the understanding, they just need to put it all together in the Grand Prix tomorrow. Right, time to hear from our top three drivers today. Charles Leclerc finished P3, Lewis Hamilton was second, Max Verstappen from pole position 1. We're not quite ready to bring you those interviews yet, though, so let's completely change the subject and change direction. Jacques, earlier on in the week, I saw a podcast with Carlos Sainz where he said some of the drivers, in fact, the majority of the drivers, are coming to the belief that sprints should be a solely reverse championship order race. What do you think of that?
You need the qualifying because you need a good Friday. The reason for the sprint race was to have a better Friday, which means having a qualifying on Friday. If you remove the Friday qualifying, what's the point in having the sprint? How is Friday better than it was in the past?
Okay, James?
I don't love the reverse championship order thing. I just wish it wasn't Parc Fermé. I wish that drivers and teams had the opportunity to work on these cars, make them better. I mean, that's what's fun about going to the track, right? Is you unload with something, but if it's not the best car off the truck, to just kind of have to resign yourself to whatever you've got, that doesn't seem like racing to me. This is the whole point of all these engineers, all this simulation work, the guys back at the factory working overnight in the war rooms. Let these teams do what they do, try and improve, and that way you might actually have different results between Saturday and Sunday because you can actually make changes.
Love that. Right, I think we can now hear from our top three drivers, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, and Max Verstappen.
Herschel, you gave it a great go into turn 1. Kind of when you look back on it, that was worth it, wasn't it, to do that, even if you ended up kind of maybe dropping back and losing the position?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I tried it. So I cannot know about the whole situation behind me and who is on the right, who is on the left. So there was a gap. I was only looking in front. I tried to go for it. There wasn't much of a gap at the end, but it's part of racing. And yeah, at the end, I lost the second place there to Lewis. and then it was extremely difficult to keep them.
What was the pace of the car like, and what kind of pointers does that give you for tomorrow when you're going to hopefully be battling the Mercedes?
We are struggling a little bit with the tyre degradation, so on that we need to look what to do for tomorrow, because at the moment we are struggling a little bit.
Okay, thank you very much. Good luck.
You.
Hey Lewis, in that early phase of the race, great start into P2. You were within a second of Max as well. It looked like you might be able to give him a fight, so that must have been a pretty exciting position to be in, at least in that early phase.
Yeah. Oh no, I was happy that it was good to get up into second. I think the turn one was awesome, and then, I was trying to lean on him, but I knew that he was finding it easy just to keep that gap around a second. I definitely didn't know whether he would pull away like he did, but he just had so much rear end. He was just cruising. It was impressive to watch.
The pace relative, though, to everyone else looks pretty good in terms of race pace. That gives you good confidence tomorrow. It could be a good day and a podium's on the cards.
Yeah. Good learnings today in terms of balance. Got to make some tweaks for tomorrow in order to make the stints that we need to do. But yeah, I'm happy. As I said, we have made an improvement in the car. Still a long way to go. We need a lot more than what we brought, but I know the guys are working on it.
Great stuff. Best luck tomorrow. Thanks. Hey Max, congratulations. How satisfying was it to get such a great day all round, really, after a slightly more difficult Friday?
Yeah, I mean, the pace has been always there. Just, of course, unfortunate with the track limits in the first qualifying, but today has been, pretty straightforward. I think the only thing was, lap one, turn one, to try and stay ahead. But after that, I think we just settled in nicely after a few laps. And at one point, I could just, look after my tyres to the end and have a bit of fun at the end of the race as well, trying to push a bit more.
In terms of the learnings that you got when you were having fun out there and just getting to know the tyres, you're obviously P6 tomorrow. Do you think you can fight back and get that win tomorrow?
I'm definitely going to try. I mean, it's 5 cars to pass, which is never straightforward. But with the pace I think we had today, hopefully with more fuel in the car tomorrow, it will be even better. We'll find out tomorrow. But for sure, this was a very positive day for us, and hopefully we can show something similar out there tomorrow.
Great stuff. Good luck tomorrow. Thanks.
Now, it wasn't just Formula One that was racing here at COTA today. F1 Academy saw 2 races, the first one of which was won by Marta Garcia, and she wrapped up the championship in so doing. F1 Academy coming to the end of its very first season. Calendar for next year was announced earlier on in the week. It will be at a number of F1 races throughout the year as we continue to develop the future of female participation in open wheel racing. You can see everything you need to on the website, which should be on your screen right now. And the last race of the season takes place here at COTA tomorrow morning before the United States Grand Prix, which of course you can see here on F1 TV. There's so much that you can see here on F1 TV, from old races to all of the build-up shows and post-race shows, and wonderful interviews with wonderful people like Mr. Gunther Steiner. Well, Gunther, here we are, back in Austin. You have a unique position at this race and in this sport, leading the only American team. How much have you seen change here in America over the last, I would say, decade, but I mean, especially the last 5 years here in terms of the popularity of the sport?
Yeah, the popularity the last 5 years, actually, I would say it's about 5 years. It is growing immensely, and it keeps on growing. I mean, it's something unbelievable because, as you said, maybe the race is about 10 years old now. And in the beginning, there was good attendance, but now it is a place. Last year, over 500,000 people over 3 days, it's something amazing. But the growth, and it keeps on growing, I mean, people knew what F1 was. Now you say you're in F1, everybody gets excited about, which I think it's a great thing. But I think we put a foot into the United States.
People who are new to this sport might not know quite how deep your history is in motor racing, and also here in America, because you have so much experience of racing outside of Formula One here in the US. What is it about America and motorsport that just links so well, do you think?
I think America's got a car culture, you know, and that obviously goes to motorsport. And, you know, NASCAR is very popular here, IndyCar is very popular. And now I think it was not America or Americans' fault that F1 never got the traction here. It was F1's fault not to get the traction because we were not present enough here. When Liberty Media came in 5 years ago, they knew how to approach the American market with a sport as interesting as F1 is.
Drive to Survive has been a huge part of that. You're a huge part of Drive to Survive. How much do you think the American fan base for Haas is down to Haas being an American team? How much do you think it is down to American people just loving Gunther Steiner?
I don't know, you have to ask American people, but I think, as you say, Drive to Survive has done a lot in America for F1, but also worldwide, because it came out at the time when COVID was around. You know, a lot of people were quarantined, watched everything, and obviously it gave some excitement. And then we never have to forget, F1 was the first sport which came back live, you know, of all the sports. And I think there's a lot of elements which made it so popular or increased people's interest in it. It's not only one thing, it's not only Drive to Survive, but a few things happened at the right time. And I think you well know I didn't watch Drive to Survive, but people like it, you know, so it has done something for the sport.
Thank you, Gunther.
Gunther Steiner doesn't watch Drive to Survive. I don't believe a word of it. Guys, great weekend here so far. And folks, don't forget, of course, if you're here at the track, you can scan that QR code on the screen right now and sign up for F1 TV for more interviews. We've got so much coming up in tomorrow's pre-race show. Interviews with Logan Sargeant, with Ruth Buscombe, brilliant strategist at Alfa Romeo. You can catch all the historic races from the history of the sport on F1 TV as well. But that, from us, is pretty much it for today. Guys, how much are you looking forward to the Grand Prix tomorrow? Who do you think is going to do well?
Well, we know the Red Bull will do well. It's good on its tires, and if Lewis can give him a fight, you know, mostly early in the race with a heavy fuel load, maybe get a chance there.
Hinch, Max has got it to do tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to keep him back there, certainly. I love the fact that we're going to get to watch a little bit of fighting. We're going to get to see some of that action. Like we said, he doesn't get to race a lot, so it's going to be fun to watch him race wheel to wheel. But I'm with Jacques here. I think if he gets by the first two in the first couple laps, can really start building up a bit of a gap before, you know, Max can get there, it's possible. It's not maybe likely, but it's possible.
Love that. We'll take possible. Thank you for your input and your insight, guys. Really appreciate it. Here, folks, is where you can catch everything tomorrow. Grand Prix Sunday on F1 TV for the United States Grand Prix 2023. Rolls pretty simple from here on in. Your pre-race show at 12:50 local time. The race at 2 p.m. and your post-race show, as always, immediately after the podium. And that's it from us here at the Circuit of the Americas on Sprint Saturday. Max Verstappen back to the top step of the podium, but if he's going to do it tomorrow, he's got to do it from far down the grid. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you for the United States Grand Prix on Sunday.